You know, we tend to talk about how good the good old days were, and I think what happens a lot of times we only remember the good things and not the bad things. And one of the little devices that has really helped, and we don't really appreciate it, is the screen. I had a doctor friend once that told me that he thought the screen wire did more to increase the longevity of the people in this country than all the medical advances put together. I'm not sure that's true, but he at least this was his statement. He was trying to dramatize the importance because the housefly carried almost every conceivable disease. And I can remember just a few years ago when my grandmother would stand over the table and when the people were eating and mind the flies. That was her job, having cooked all morning, and she would stand there and keep the flies off the table while the men ate. And a little later, some of the people began to feel a little sorry for Grandma, and they decided they would come up and invent some contrivance that would relieve her of that mundane task. And this is an example here. This was done by a fellow by the name of Jesse Grant. He was a cousin to President Grant, I understand. He lived over in a little place called Grantsburg. He would sit here at the head of the table and treadle this little contraption and keep the flies off. And I guess you might say that this was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution of fly shooing. A little later, in the 30s, maybe before then, someone came up with this little innovation here, which could be set out on the table on the porch or in the house or anywhere, and put some sugar or cornbread or whatever, and the flies would immediately come, and then they would alight on the table, crawl underneath that, and then when they were scared or when they got their fill, they would fly up, and you could carry this. And I remember doing this for my grandmother, carrying it, and it was black with flies, and we would carry it out over an open flame or a steam or something to eradicate the little varmints. And we were talking about the window screen. It may be that this was the beginning, the forerunner of all window screens, because Jesse Grant, on a hot evening in July, would like to raise the windows of the night so the cool air would come in. He didn't want the varmints and the cats and the owls and all these kind of things, so he made this little window screen. And maybe sometime later people said, well, we'll make it a little smaller and that'll keep the bats out, and a little smaller will keep something else. And then someone maybe came up with the idea to make it real small and revolutionary. It would keep out all the flies from the household.